welcome to your art class this week. You're going to be doing composition study. I'm showing you a print of a Cezanne still life. A still life can be anything that we have. I brought in some objects to make a still life. You're going to be creating your still life from things you have at home. This one, you don't worry about the tilt of the table. Cezanne liked to do that in his artwork, and he has a composition with flowers, if you choose to do that, and it looks like peaches, and he's made a very soft background. I brought in a corbel. I brought in a little antique train flag thing on the train tracks, and I brought in a wooden little puzzle, and I brought in some fabric in my bag. So if I'm thinking about putting a composition together, I'm going with shapes that will make it interesting. And here he used the tall tulips, he used the vase itself to make a nice line, and he used the round shapes of his thing and also where his table ended. And you're going to take the fabric and maybe put that down. It can be a scarf, it can be a napkin, something, and you're just going to lay it out on your table. Find a nice quiet spot to work. Think about in terms of something higher that you might have in the composition and where you're going to place it so it doesn't fall over. And then here's a shorter object I think I might put right in front. And then depending on whether I want to put this one in, this is where you can kind of decide what else you want in your composition. These are kind of close to the same shapes, but this one has a lot of linear things, so it could come in here next to it and lean against it. And again, sometimes I decide to take something out of it. So when we start something like this, take your object that's in the front. So here I've got the corbel, the one that's in the front. Remember how we take sometimes a ruler and to get yourself on this one, since it's both on even on both sides, I just lightly put a dotted line coming up to know that when I start to draw this, I'm looking at the shape, and I'm pretty much going to do it on both sides the same, because that's the way it's looking. So if I start to do that, I can look, I've made a second line here, so just take your time on your first object. It could be some of your toys. It could be candlestick. You can think about what you have around the house. So when I start my first one, it's in the foreground. This one I might bring a little further back. So this one's in the foreground. I know I've got the fabric. I'm going to start maybe that line coming behind it here, and from this angle I'm going to be a little off, but I can do that so it's behind it. Other part is on the thing, so I'm going to start with the fabric and what it might be doing in the picture, just lightly sketching a line in to give kind of what that background's going to be interesting to do. And then I can decide whether I'm going to show how much pattern I have in it, or a solid piece of fabric if you don't want to do designs in it. So here I'm going to just start to sketch in lightly what I'm seeing in the pattern. So I've got that happening. So I'm just lightly starting that. I'll come back and do details because I have plenty of time to work on this so I can see my design, the bigger part of my design. And of course it's folded over, so I have all these neat other lines that are coming in. So the second object I'm going to put in is I'm going to come back here and look at my train signal. And because I'm looking here, I'm going to turn it around so I can see it. So normally I wouldn't be doing that. So I've made another straight line. I've actually got it further back in the picture. So the base of it, you can almost line up with the second layer down here of my round part, so I know it's going to start in here, so I'm going to see it going behind. And again, it's a cylinder, so I'm just starting with a cylinder shape, and there's my center. So as I start to bring this up, it's going to be behind the corbel, so part of this is here, so I'm going to bring that up. as I start to do. I've got my little flag coming out. And I've got all this neat grid work that I'm going to be able to put in. That's what I always call the fun part. So as you're looking, you're taking and you're looking at what's there. You're going to be shading, and this is where we get into all of that stuff we were doing last week with your pencil. So look what I'm doing to get the pattern started. I'm not drawing it, I'm actually putting in the negative space of that as I put this in. So you can see that's making the little X pattern come up. So I would be doing that coming all the way up here. Part way through there, it changes color, so I might reverse it. So down here I might do the dark shape and let the background be the lighter. You can start to see what I'm going to do here. So I kind of block it out. So again, I'm looking at my shading as I do, so I'd be continuing that idea going down. So when you're doing a composition like this, you're just building your parts, you're taking your time, and then you come back and you keep drawing as you see. Like here, when I get back in here, I'm going to come back in with more cross-hatching as I work this up. So I'm going to be able to have more dimension happening. I can bring in curved cross-hatching as I start doing my objects. This is more fun too. If you do this drawing strictly as a drawing without any color, and take your time on shadowing in where you see dark spots, where you see the contrast of something. So behind here with this fabric, I happen to have it darker. So I might, as I do my patterning, I might come along and do where the white paper is going to show through for the patterning rather than the drawing lines. So I'm going to come and create the patterns doing this with the using the softer pencil lines to make the pattern come out. So you can see how that starts to appear and starts to be the design in the fabric. And again, an artist doesn't worry about how long something takes. You just have fun playing with the pattern, and before you know it, a couple hours have passed and you've created something that might even surprise yourself on what you're able to do. So I'm going to leave that other object out. I can do this and I could play with this and just leave it as these two. It actually makes an interesting composition because the pattern in this fabric is going to get interesting with the background. And I kind of like it offset like it is. It's got the taller and a shorter. Down here, I could decide later I might put something else in there. The shells you saw on that one, you can see how that was probably not made by nature. I have a feeling the shells were placed there for composition. So you could think about what else would be interesting. So sometimes an artist changes things. They may think they're going to start with one thing and then they change. So I'm going to take this out of that composition, and maybe later I might add, you've seen my dragon ring before. I might find that this might be nicer in the foreground down here in that space to go ahead and draw my ring and have it down in there as an object. So you think about what you want in your composition. You're doing a still life. So you want things that you can leave in place somewhere that won't get changed, or when you put it back, you look at your drawing you started and you put your objects back in the same spot. And this will really increase your drawing skills. Have fun with this.